Also, it's important to note too that menopause is not an old woman's issue. I hear this all the time. I'm like,
Yeah,
stop saying that, because if you, let's say you go through menopause at 50, you can live until you're 80,
exactly.
right? So you still got 30 more years after menopause. So menopause is not the end. I always say this can be a new beginning. You have to think of it. This is usually the time when women are becoming empty nesters, so their kids are leaving the house. So now you can focus more on yourself. You can start to do things more for your own health. It's a time for reinvention, right? And then
Right.
some Asian countries, they call menopause a woman's second spring. Right. And I'm like, that's a beautiful way of thinking
It
of it.
is.
And I wish that we could get people here in America to think of menopause as a woman's second spring, because then you can look at it as something to look forward to rather than something that's daunting and that you have to suffer and struggle through, because it doesn't have to be a struggle.
You're listening to the Woman Up podcast. I'm your host, Natasha. Today, we're joined by the extraordinary Tafiq Akhir, also known as Mr. Menopause. With over 2 decades in health and wellness, Tafiq is a powerhouse in menopause awareness and healthy aging. Tafiq is an award-winning author and a passionate advocate for midlife health who also champions educational and developmental opportunities for youth. Get ready for a session full of groundbreaking advice on thriving through menopause and beyond.
Welcome back to the Woman Up podcast, where we ignite the fire in every woman to make bold moves and find her voice in a bustling world. I'm your host, Natasha, and today we have a truly inspiring guest, Tafiq Akhir, also known as Mr. Menopause. Tafiq is not only an award-winning menopause awareness and a healthy aging specialist, but also a passionate advocate for midlife health and wellness. Tafiq, welcome to the Woman Up podcast.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much for asking me to be on.
So for people who do not know you, please introduce yourself.
My name is Tafiq Akhir. I am a licensed and award-winning menopause and healthy aging specialist. I have worked in health and wellness for women specifically since 2000, so 24 years to be exact, as of April of this year. I actually just kind of fell into working with women as I worked at gyms and things like that. Women were just more attracted to my coaching style.
Right.
And from there, when I started working with them personally, I started to learn more about their health issues. And that's how I started learning more about women's health and women's hormones. And that's how I became my specialist in that area.
I love we spoke before the show. You told me that you were not a coach but an educator.
Yes.
Can you talk to us about that just a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the things that when I originally started doing menopause and getting more information out there, one of the pushbacks that I got from a lot of women was that we don't want a man telling us what to do with their body. And I totally get that, right? And that's why I say I'm not a coach, I'm an educator, because what I do is I educate women on the things that they need to know about menopause so that they can make educated and informed decisions for themselves without anyone telling them. Because a lot of times someone will say, my friend told me to try this. Yes, but does your friend know the pros and the cons and the risks and the benefits, or do they just know what their experience is? Because your body's going to react very differently than things. So it's important for people to be well informed. I always say when we know better, we can do better. And when it comes to menopause, you can live better.
I'm loving that. What inspired you to specialize in menopause awareness and healthy aging?
So one of the key things was as I started working with women and they started, getting past that 40 mark, I started to notice that they were all having kind of the similar things happened. And it also sparked in me a memory of when I was a teenager and seeing my mom struggle through some of those same things. And one of the things that really ignited me to move forward was as I started learning more about menopause, I was like, wow, my mom was suffering and struggling through all this stuff alone. Because I remember my mom, she would just lock herself in her bedroom and she would just be isolated with hot flashes, mood swings, and all these things all by herself. And I'm like, my mom passed away in 94. So women 30 years later are still struggling with the same thing that my mom was back then. And I couldn't understand why, because all the information I had learned was pretty basic. I'm like, why isn't this much better known? And as I started to talk more with women, none of them knew. They're just like, we don't know anything about menopause. So I'm like, okay, so what do you do in that case? You educate them. So that's what I started doing. So here are the things that you need to know so that you can manage your symptoms better, so that you can make better health choices. Because a lot of people think of menopause as a health issue, but menopause is more than a health issue. It's a life issue. It impacts a woman physically, mentally, and emotionally. So that means it's going to affect her home life, her work life, and her social life, and everyone in those areas of her life. And if she doesn't know how to speak about it and to tell people what's going on with her, they won't know how to interact with her appropriately, how to be empathetic to what she needs, she's going through, and what she needs. And the same with those people. They need to be educated about menopause as well, because it will impact them on some degree also.
Can you share what are some of the biggest challenges you face in educating people, well, women, about menopause and healthy aging, especially in a society that often overlooks midlife health issues?
Well, again, interestingly enough, the biggest issue that I come up against is women not wanting a man telling them about menopause, which Again, I say I understand, but because I'm coming from such a different place, I just wish that they would just at least give me the opportunity to share what I do, because it's not the same as what other health and wellness coaches do, because they coach you. They tell you, do this, do that.
Right.
That's not what I do. I say, here are the options. Now you can go forward. But because they don't give me that opportunity to learn that's why I was so happy when you invited me on, because I rarely get invited on shows by women or show for women. And this is what I'm wanting to do. I'm wanting to share this information with women, because you see all these mainstream people talking about it on the mainstream, the Drew Barrymores, the Oprahs, and all these people. And it's great that they're talking about it more publicly. But if you notice, they're all saying the same thing. It's just a repetition of the same words going on. Everybody's trying to get you women to do HRT. They're trying to get all this stuff, but they're not telling you that there's a myriad of other options out there besides HRT that can help you. They're not telling you that there's also non-hormone medications that can help you, and that there's lifestyle things that can help you, and that those things will be so much more helpful with the HRT if you actually need it, because some women are on HRT and don't even need it. Their symptoms could have been relieved or taken care of just by changing some lifestyle things that they're doing.
And let me rephrase that. What should we be doing as a women going towards the menopause? And for those who are in menopause, what should they be doing?
Getting education, being more educated about menopause. Because what a lot of people are doing is they're doing Google searches, or they're doing this. But what's happening is you're doing a Google search and you're learning what somebody did based on either their experience or their opinion. And what we have to understand is opinions are not facts, right? So, there's tons of women out there that say, oh, HRT is horrible. It's this, don't do that, don't that. Well, that's not really true. Actually, HRT is the gold standard for menopause support. However, there are women that can't do it medically because of issues that they can't do it. And then there's women who are just afraid and that won't do it. So what they think is, okay, well, then I just have to suffer through this for the rest of my life until menopause is over. Well, no, you don't. There's other options out there. You just don't know that they're out there. And until you get with someone who is actually accredited and knows their stuff, you won't be able to get this information that you need, because again, awareness and education is the key. I always tell people, when you know better, you do better. So.
Definitely. I'm loving that. You wrote a book called Making Menopause Work in the Workplace. Can you talk to us about what you wrote in that book and how it impacted people who already who got the book, and the feedback that you got from writing that book?
Yes. So I wrote that book because initially my goal was, well, my goal still is within the next year, I want to educate 1 million women about menopause. So I was thinking the best way to do that is if you go to a business, they have all these employees. I can talk to all employees at one time. So I wrote the book again as actually more so for management and HR, because management and HR don't realize the economic and social impact that menopause has in the workplace. So a lot of times they're not providing support because they don't know that. So what this book does is it educates the HR and the leaders of these companies on what menopause is, how it impacts their employees, and how that is going to impact their work environment, their productivity, their talent retention, their absenteeism, all those things come into place. But when you have an organization that is supportive, empathetic, have menopause policies, all of those things diminish. Women are more likely to stay in their jobs. A lot of people don't realize that when women go through menopause, it's between their 40s and 50s. So, right. And this is also the time that most women are in line to be promoted.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of women turn down those promotions because they're having menopause and they're afraid to talk about it in the workplace. Whereas if they just spoke about it and made it more open, and actually studies have also found that colleagues who had women in their area that were going through a hot flash, if they commented to the woman about the hot flash and the woman downplayed it, oh, I'm just fine, I'm fine, they looked at them more negatively than if the woman said, I'm going through a hot flash. They were actually more prone to be more empathetic if she was more honest about what was going on. But
Right.
because women think the opposite, because they think of the stigma and the taboo, they don't do that. But if the workforce knows more about that, then they can be more empathetic and supportive. And that's why I wrote the book.
I think I'm gonna get that book too, because I want to. I have to get prepared, and my audience needs to get that book actually. So I think there's a lot of value from what you're sharing right now, and yes, so I think I'll invite the audience to get that book.
Are you a team leader who feels overlooked despite your capabilities and efforts? Do you experience anxiety before important networking opportunities, struggling to forge meaningful professional relationships? Does the fear of appearing inauthentic or pushy in networking settings hold you back? Introducing the Networking Powerhouse Acceleration Program, a transformative 12-week journey designed exclusively for team leaders like you who want to gain recognition, confidence, and notoriety through masterful networking. We understand the pain of attending countless networking events and still feeling invisible. Our program offers personalized strategies that make you stand out and be remembered, including sessions that will provide you with the tools to approach any networking scenario with confidence, turning anxiety into anticipation. We teach you how to effectively follow up and nurture professional relationships, transforming contacts into valuable allies, eradicate your fear of being ignored. We equip you with the skills to leave memorable impressions that keep you on the radar long after the first meeting. Fear of not fitting in? Learn to navigate diverse professional environments effortlessly, ensuring you always belong. Fear of inauthenticity? Master the art of authentic engagement, allowing your true self to shine through every interaction. Ultimately, become a networking powerhouse. This program isn't just about networking. It's about revolutionizing the way you connect with the world. By the end of 12 weeks, you won't just attend events, you'll command them. You'll not only meet peers, you'll profoundly connect with industry leaders. Transform your network to open doors to opportunities you've only imagined. Join us and turn your networking efforts into a strategic asset that propels you and your career forward. Spots are limited. Secure your place in the Networking Powerhouse Acceleration Program today and start your journey to notoriety and success. Contact us now to reserve your spot and take the first step towards becoming an undeniable force in your industry.
Supporting men, we often see menopause as a woman's issue. How do you involve and educate men in this conversation?
Yes. Real quick, just before we go on, just because you were just saying that because you're not in the menopause stage yet. So it's important to note that women of color, especially Black women, go into menopause 5 to 10 years earlier than other races. So you can possibly start your perimenopause phase at 35 rather than 40. So you could be having symptoms right now and not realize that there's symptoms of menopause because there's three phases: perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause. Perimenopause can last for 15 years. So you can be going 15 years, which could start at 35, and then you won't hit menopause until 50. So, but perimenopause is when all the symptoms happen. So women think that the symptoms are menopause, but most of the symptoms happen in the phase before menopause.
Wow.
You know that. And then as far as like men in menopause, again, I think it's really important for men to be part of the conversation, not only for the support, for the empathy and things like that, but also because men go through something that is called andropause. And just like women have a decrease in estrogen, men have a decrease in testosterone. And guess what symptoms are? Mood swings, hot flashes, night sweats, same thing. And I always say this when women say, oh, men wouldn't understand, men wouldn't. Well, you're not talking to your girlfriends about it. Do you think that men are talking to their friends about their lack of testosterone or their...
Of course not.
No. So women aren't talking, men aren't talking, so nobody's talking to each other. So everyone thinks nobody understands. Well, I always say, well, of course I'm not going to understand if you don't tell me. So again, it goes back to educating people, talking to each other, letting people know what's going on. Because men are going to be, again, if you're in menopause, mentally, physically, emotionally, so again, socially, at work, and at home, there are men in all those areas. So you have to interact with those men. So if men have the information and know more about what's going on, again, they could be more empathetic. They can also open up about what they're experiencing so that you can see that you have more in common than you have that's not in common. And when you have that common ground, you're able to be more supportive, more empathetic, and you guys get through it better. All of the clients that I have that have had the most beneficial, or what do I want to call it, journey through menopause, where it was more easy to go through menopause, they had a partner who was supportive and who was open to understanding and learning more about the process, because that all of that adds to the anxiety, depression, and the mood issues that happen during menopause. All those things can be alleviated when you have more support, especially at home.
I'd love for you to address the mental and emotional challenges that both parties, men and women, go through in their own journey, and how what advice do you have for couples to understand better each other going into those phases of their life?
Yes. So the mental and emotional changes happen again because estrogen, when estrogen decreases, let me back up a little bit. So estrogen works with every single hormone organ in our body, right? So think about it that way. So if you already have a deficiency in the area, like say your thyroid or something like that, when estrogen is gone, that area is going to become more stressed out. So you're going to get more symptoms in that area. Same thing with mental clarity, cognitive function, memory, mood swings, concentration. All those things are affected by the decrease in estrogen. And so again, every woman's going to experience this differently. And when men are going through andropause, they're going to experience it differently because whatever their chemical makeup is different. Some women have severe depression, and it's shown that women who start out depressed before they go into menopause become extremely depressed during menopause. So you want to make sure, again, that you're doing things that are helping with mood stabilization, even little things like relaxation techniques, meditation, yoga, things like that have been shown to actually improve women's cognitive and mood swings throughout that. Also, you want to make sure that you're doing the right supplementation, omega-3 fatty acids, which are great for bone health and heart health, because again, we know that women have a higher rate of heart disease during menopause. But guess what? That's partially because that estrogen going low, again, is a decreasing heart function, decreasing bone density. So you want to make sure that you're countering that with nutrition. That's going to help to boost those areas, as well as physical things. And of course, the emotional things, like don't be afraid to talk to a therapist about what you're going through. Same thing with the couples. Go to couples therapy if that's an issue, because what it typically is with the couples, again, is just lack of awareness, lack of understanding, and lack of communication.
Definitely.
Because another thing that happens is that There are a lot of vaginal changes that happen during menopause as well, like dryness, increased UTIs, and all that stuff. So what happens? Women don't want to have sex. And so because you're not really talking more about it, the man feels like you don't want to have sex with him. He doesn't know it has to do with menopause. I had a guy on my show that talked about how he thought his wife didn't love him anymore, right?
Wow.
And at the same time, he was going through andropause, so they were having hot flashes at the same time, right? So exactly. So it's one of those things where just that lack of communication and talking to each other. And even he said, because they had gone through that maybe 15 years ago, he's like, gosh, I wish we knew you 15 years ago. But and again, it just goes back to knowing when know better, do better. I'm just going to keep saying that. When you know better, you can do better.
I'm loving this. This is so, I'm loving everything that you're sharing. It's definitely inspiring. And and to note there's a lot of hope, and the misconceptions that we miss, the things that we miss about that critical or pivotal moment of our life that we don't know. It's crazy. Talk to us about your Mr. Menopause show. What are the key lessons or standout moments that have enriched your understanding of menopause?
Well, what I like about how the show has kind of evolved is that I originally started it just teaching lessons, like, again, just educating people. And then I started having guests come on. I have a segment called Her Menopause Story, where I have different women come on and tell their journey, because again, you have friends that are telling you, try this. So I have different women come on sharing their different experience with HRT. Some had great experiences, some had horrible experiences, so that women can see that, there is no one path that you can go. There's a very varied path. Then I also have conversations with the husbands and men and then specialists. So I get all different aspects again, so that people are able to learn more about what this process is, because I look at menopause as a stage and a process that every woman will go through, because every woman will experience the decrease in estrogen and the end of her menstrual cycle. And by the way, that's what menopause is. Menopause is the moment that a woman has gone with no period for 12 months, right? That's one moment. You're in menopause. Then after that, you're in postmenopause, right? So there's perimenopause, which can last for 15 years, menopause, which is one moment, and then postmenopause. So I always tell people, think of perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause as one thing, because they flow together rather than just saying, I'm in menopause, because that just means that your period stopped, right?
Yeah.
When you say I'm in menopause, because you may be in perimenopause because you're having all these symptoms. And what happens in perimenopause, your period can stop for a little while, but it can start again as well.
It can start again.
Yes, during perimenopause. So perimenopause, again, is that phase where you go up until you get to menopause. So there's women who also have what's called flooding, where you have a big rush of your period, and then you have no period for 6 months. And then you have a regular period. So there's irregular periods, then it could stop for a while, start a while. And it's not until it's stopped again for 12 months consecutively that is considered menopause.
And that cycle is the same for everybody, or does it changes from individual to another?
It's individual, because some women don't have any symptoms at all. They sail through it. Then other women, their symptoms are so harsh that they feel like that they just need to be on medication and just need to stay in the house. I had a woman who had an issue that her menopause caused her to go into agoraphobia. She couldn't even leave the house for 6 months. Right. So different women are going to experience it differently. Also, it's important to note, too, that menopause is not an old woman's issue. I mean, I hear this all the time. I'm like, Stop saying that, because let's say you go through menopause at 50, you can live until you're 80.
Exactly.
Right? So you still got 30 more years after menopause. So menopause is not the end. I always say this can be a new beginning. You have to think of it. This is usually the time when women are becoming empty nesters, so their kids are leaving the house. So now you can focus more on yourself. You can start to do things more for your own health. It's a time for reinvention, right? And in some Asian countries, they call menopause a woman's second spring, right? And I'm like, that's a beautiful way of thinking
It
of it.
is.
And I wish that we could get people here in America to think of menopause as a woman's second spring, because then you can look at it as something to look forward to rather than something that's daunting and that you have to suffer and struggle through, because it doesn't have to be a struggle.
Is it true that women who had their period early in their life, let's say like 9 to 10-year old, are more prone to be to go through menopause earlier than the standard age of getting their periods? Is it true? Because I've read something like that, and I want to address that with you.
Yeah. So again, it goes back to individuality. For some people, that may be the case, because what was the reason for the early period? You know what I mean? Was it because there was something with their hormones that started triggering early? So that means that their whole process is going to be early, right? And then you have to realize that the youngest case of menopause is 17 years old. So, right, so again, there is no yes or no, because it could be surgically induced, which another thing people don't realize. People can be put in a medically induced menopause. So it just depends. There's no one size fits all. So they can say that, but show me proof. I need the facts. Show me the facts. If you
Yeah, definitely.
facts, I'll go with it.
But I think it was super relevant to address this because, like you said, we go to Google, and Google is just like everybody getting their opinions, and it's a bunch of melting pots of information. What are the most important steps that midlife women can take to manage their health and hormones effectively?
I go back to the whole thing about education, because you won't know what you need to do for your body until you actually get informed. Again, some women will have like issues where they just maybe they need hormone therapy, but they just need estrogen, or maybe they need estrogen and progestin. Then I have some women who need neither one of those. They need actually testosterone. So it's like you won't know until you get more educated on which hormones you actually need, if you need them, because maybe supplementation might help. Maybe herbal remedies might work, because there are herbal remedies that are good for hot flashes and mood swings as well. Again, for people that don't want to go that medical intervention route. There's so many different options, but education is the key. First and foremost, I would say the easiest thing to do is just lifestyle changes, right? Making sure that you're getting adequate sleep, right? Putting yourself into a sleep routine where you get up and go to bed at the same time, because this is one of the things that during menopause, sleep becomes a big issue for women. And what we also need to know is that sleep is when our body rejuvenates itself. So if you're not able to sleep, you're not going to be able to get healthier and not going to be able to reduce your symptoms, because body's not getting the rest to rebuild and recover as it needs to. So getting a good sleep routine is going to be key. Lifestyle adjustment number 2 is physical activity. But what does that mean, right? A lot of people say, oh, we know we're supposed to exercise. Yes, but specifically for women, you need to do strength training exercises when you're going through getting into menopause, because one of the things that happens is decreased bone loss as well as muscle loss. So you want to increase lean muscle, because that helps keep your bones strong so that you don't get osteoporosis, which is a big thing that happens with women during menopause, again, because of that decrease in vitamin D that happens because of the loss of estrogen. So you want to make sure that you're doing that and eating foods that are high in vitamin D, and of course, getting sunlight. And then finally, just lifestyle things like mindfulness, taking time for yourself, not overwhelming yourself. Like I always tell people, if you have drama in your life, it's because you allow it.
That's
right.
True. I agree.
So as soon as you stop allowing it, then you won't have it. It's the same thing with stress. If you have a highly stressful life, it's because you're allowing your life to be stressful, and that impacts cortisol, and that's one of the big things that's affected during menopause.
There are a lot of women who are avoiding going to the doctors, but do you think that it's a good thing to consider to go to the doctor and have those blood levels checked, those have those test checks. Do you think it's prior to go to a naturopathic approach and all that stuff? Shouldn't we go to the doctor first to have those tests?
Oh, well, that's one of the things that's been debate. Like, does a woman actually need to have her hormones checked? Because whether your hormones are off or not, it won't matter until you've had no period for 12 months, right? So they're not going to tell you your estrogen levels could be at 0, but if you're still having your period, they're not going to tell you're in menopause. So, and most doctors won't even diagnose you until you've gone 12 months. They won't even do blood tests because there is no real blood test for menopause.
Right.
Another thing to note is that there's no such thing as a menopause doctor. Right. So that's also important to note. So doctors have to get an electorate, get extra education in menopause, which most doctors do not. 65% of doctors get 1 lecture in menopause, 20% get no education whatsoever. So it's important to find a doctor that has gotten that extra information and education and most likely an accreditation. I always tell people to go to the Menopause Society, which is, you can look them up online, Menopause Society. They used to be called the North American Menopause Society, but the Menopause Society, they actually have a list of accredited doctors, and you can find one in your area. If you put in your area code, you can find doctors in your area that are menopause accredited. So if you do see a doctor about your menopause, be sure to go to a menopause accredited. That way they'll do all the correct things in order to find out. They'll tell you if you need the blood test. They'll tell you if you need those things, because those are the doctors that know their stuff when it comes to menopause. Another one of the big things that I have an issue with all these people online is because just because they say they're a doctor, they come on and talk about menopause. Yeah, but what are your menopause credentials, right? You're a doctor, but what are the menopause credentials? Because some doctors get kickbacks from HRT companies to push their things. So you want to make sure, again, that you're having a doctor that is educated in what you're going through. But again, even before that, getting educated is key. So finding a program or a teacher that can teach you more about what menopause is. That way, when you do go to the doctor, you go in informed so that the doctor can't pull a little swifty shifty if they want to try something different, that you can say, well, this is what I know is out there. Do you think these are good for me? Sometimes the doctors won't even know what those options are if they haven't been accredited. So if you go in with that information, then they can help you make the decision moving forward. Or you can find someone like myself who is not a doctor, but who is nationally accredited, who is a menopause specialist, because we also have that information. The only difference is we can't do the test and we can't prescribe medications, but we can point you in the right direction to get the help that you need.
I'm loving that. Talk to us about your future project. What upcoming project or initiative that are you most excited about that are coming in, that you have coming in? I know you have a lot of stuff that you want to talk about. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, again, I'm so excited. I have a new program called Menopause Made Simple. And again, this is an educational series. Because what I was doing was just educating people one-on-one, whereas this is an e-learning program where you can go at your own pace, learn about everything. And that's actually starting on July 1st. And it's everything that you need to know about menopause, from the risk, the benefits, symptoms, the stages, social impact, everything. So I really covered everything. I did a huge test group with it. I got great feedback, and I was also able to hear what women said that they wanted. And I was able to fix the things that they said they needed to see more of or that they wanted. So that is one of the things. Another thing that I'm hoping to launch within maybe around the fall time is called the Mr. Menopause Roadshow, where I'm going to go around to different cities and do live workshops to educate women about menopause and healthy aging, as well as some companies that will have me come in and speak. And then I also have a book version of Menopause Made Simple coming out called Demystifying Menopause, which should be out within the next 2 months.
Congratulations. That's very,
Thank you.
You're getting me excited now.
Because I think it's so important and so many people are missing it. And one of the things I know is that just from myself growing up, everyone learns differently, right? Some people learn better visually. Some people learn better reading. Some people learn audibly. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to create a version in all those so that I can help as many people be able to learn and the best way that they learn so that we can get, again, this information needs to get out there because women, like I said, my mom was struggling 30 years ago. There's no reason for women to be going through the same issues that my mom did before we had the advances in medicine and information that we have now. There's no reason for it.
As we are wrapping up, can you please, I have a last question for you. Mm-hmm. It's been very valuable. I love your energy. And I want to know, what is your legacy? What do you want people to remember you for?
Wow, I've never been asked that question before. That's a good one. I just really want to I want to change the face of how we approach women's health in general, and not just menopause health, because along with menopause, my mom struggled with a lot of health issues. And like I said, again, I'm seeing women today struggle with a lot of the same things, the high blood pressure, the high cholesterol, the osteoporosis, the obesity, and all these things that can actually be helped if we just know what to do. And there's no reason for this to be such an issue. Menopause is a billion-dollar industry. How can something be a billion-dollar industry, but it's not giving people relief? It makes no sense to me. Right. So there's a reason for that. They're keeping that line going because they're not putting the information out there. So I hope to be the pioneer in helping to make the menopause movements more open and more accessible here in the United States, because we're actually behind. In the UK, they are way ahead of us. Wow. I got one of my licenses from the UK. They have laws in place. They have the workplaces are doing it. It's really big there. And I'm like, if we could just get if we could get 10 companies to just start putting in a menopause policy. And the problem is they all think that it's a challenging thing where a workshop, a 45-minute workshop can give your company a certification and the education you need to make things better. So it's not as challenging as people think. And that's why I'm trying to make things more simplified, yet information packed while being simplified.
That's great. I want to thank you, Tafiq, for your time, for giving us the best you could for the past 30 minutes.
Of course.
I mean, I'm hoping that we could do this again in the future and even collaborating. That's a definitely. I want to thank as well my audience for tuning in. I want to address the importance, the awareness that Tafiq that brought around in providing actionable resources to menopause and healthy aging is not only inspiring, but essential for fostering a supportive and understanding and inclusive community. Be sure to check out Tafiq's book, Making a Menopause Work in the Workplace, and tune in at his show, the Mr. Menopause Show, for insightful discussion. I want to thank you for tuning in, and remember, at Woman Up, it's all about finding your voice and making bold moves and rising together. Until next time, Woman Up.
Dance to the rhythm, feel the fire within, embracing femininity, breaking through. We win, no more hiding in the shadows. Let your light shine, stand tall, be proud. It's your time to rise. Feel the rhythm in your bones, let it set you free. Afrobeat vibes, celebrating diversity. Strong and fierce, we're breaking down the walls, unapologetically embracing our femininity. Standing tall, freedom in our hearts, liberation in our souls. Raise your voice, let the whole world know. We're breaking chains, take control. In this Afrobeat anthem, watch us go. Just glow.